Do you ever get bored with your workouts? This is something that we hear quite frequently from people where, yeah, I would exercise, but oh my gosh, I just find it to be so boring. What do you do in those cases? A lot of times what people end up doing actually ends up making their health worse off. So how can you go about not being bored with your workouts while still keeping your health intact and building your health along the way? That's exactly what we're going to be exploring during today's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast. We're going to cue the intro song and then we're going to dive right into this conversation. Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Charlie. Before we dive into this week's episode, I want to let you know that we recently released a book called The Exercise for Life Method. And if you enjoy the conversations that we have every single week on this podcast, then you are going to love this book. So to pick up a free copy of this book, all you have to do is go to exerciseforlifemethod.com. Now, without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we're coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, here in Schaumburg, Illinois, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset, and the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. Now, before we get into the content today, we want to say thank you to every single one of you exercisers who've taken the time out of your day to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It means the world to us when you do that. And because of that, we want to take a moment right now to highlight one that we recently received.
This 5-star review says, "Excited about your podcast. Fantastic info. You guys are so fun and interesting to listen to. I loved the episode about the benefits of exercise. I have osteoporosis and feel strongly about maintaining bone health. Very good job explaining all the different categories of benefits. I look forward to future episodes." Thank you so much for that 5-star review. We absolutely thrive off of hearing from you guys, our community of listeners and our community of exercisers. So if you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes, go to your podcasting app, scroll to the bottom, and leave us that rating and review.
Now, Julie.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt bored with your workouts? You're just like, oh, I'm just really not looking forward to this or not really feeling this today?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of like, oh, this is just not interesting. This is not fun. This is not entertaining. And I don't think it's just me and you that feel that way. In fact, I think most people have felt that way or often feel that way with their workouts. So the question is, well, what can we do about that, right? Because a lot of times what I hear being done ends up actually making people's health worse. And there's a problem with that, right? Because we're supposed to be exercising to build the health and function of our body. But if our workouts are breaking down the health and function of our body just so we can be entertained with them, well, that's in a lot of ways kind of defeating the purpose. So how do we go about actually making sure that we can stay not just like entertained with our workouts, but make sure that we can stay doing our workouts, that they don't feel like a total bore? How do we go about changing up what we're doing if we are feeling bored with our workouts and still making sure that our health feels intact? This is what we're going to explore today. And I think this is a really crucial conversation for a lot of people because of how often this idea of like, oh my gosh, I'm just so bored with my workouts does come up.
You're right, Charlie. And it's important that we're talking about this because you guys know that to be getting health benefits from exercise, you have to be a lifelong exerciser, which means you have to keep doing it through the times when you're really interested in it, when you're really bored with it, when you're tired of exercising, when you have maybe a hurdle or a physical block and you have to work around it. So we are a resilient group of exercisers. And so today we're going to be tackling this issue of boredom with exercise. Now, I think a lot of us have experienced this and we always, obviously we problem solve, we figure out what we're going to do. And here are some of the very common things that people will do to solve this boredom problem. First of all, we see a lot of people stop, especially if you're newer. Maybe if you've been exercising for 2 years or less, you're new to exercise, you'll just take a break. And we feel like taking a break is fine. It's really not fine, because then you immediately stop getting the health benefits of exercise. And once you break, then it's harder to restart. So this would look like someone exercising regularly, they are doing it, and usually it means that there's like a certain feeling around exercise. Like they feel good, they're entertained by their trainer, it's easy to schedule it, and then maybe some stuff in life comes up, like some family stress or COVID or another challenge, and it becomes difficult to start getting in the workouts. And maybe then also it feels challenging to find, stimulation in the workouts, meaning you're getting bored with them. And so it just seems like an easy, natural time to take a break or to stop. This is what happens with a lot of people.
Yeah, what's interesting that I love that you brought up is when you take that break, a lot of people think, okay, well, I'm going to take the break and then I'm going to come back, refreshed, recharged, and ready to go. Kind of like, they go on vacation from work and then they come back and they maybe have a little bit more zest for work or, their day-to-day activities. With exercise, when you stop doing your exercise, your brain actually starts to change and it starts to become less tolerant of doing things that feel uncomfortable, that doing things that have some resistance or some challenge, or like you were saying, Julie, some hurdles to get through. So when you stop exercising, not only do you kind of fall out of the habit, but like you were saying, it becomes actually more difficult to get back into the routine of exercise. Not just because your brain changes, but actually like how you see yourself starts to change. If you see yourself as somebody who exercises consistently, and then you start, taking a few days off or more days off than you normally do, and now all of a sudden the story about yourself starts to change, right? And you start to see yourself differently as, okay, well, maybe I'm not somebody anymore who exercises all the time. Maybe I'm somebody who just exercises, every once in a while. And when that becomes a new story you tell yourself, well, now your actions are going to start matching up with the story of what you believe your identity to be. And so that makes it more difficult to get back into the habit again. And so this idea of, it's actually really difficult to start up again once you stop, it's a huge point that you brought up. And so I just want to dive a little bit more deeply into that because it's right on. It's absolutely true.
You're right, Charlie. And I think also in the beginning, it's easy to not be bored because everything is kind of new. Like you're trying out new exercises. Maybe you're getting acquainted with, the MAS home workout program, or, you're learning about the different trainers at the gym. And so anyways, in the beginning, it's very interesting because everything's pretty new. But after you've been doing it for a year or two, that's when sometimes boredom can set in because if you are exercising for your health, you'll notice that we don't start doing like circus-like moves and we don't turn it into an external competition like the regular mainstream fitness is. So we're going to talk about some ways to combat this, but there's a couple other things that people normally do when they're getting bored other than just stop exercise. Another one is to increase the entertainment, increase that fun factor.
Yeah, that's definitely a big one. I remember early on training clients and they'd come in with a story of like, well, I just get bored with my workout so quickly, so I need a brand new workout every single time. It needs to be all new exercises because to them that was fun, that was entertaining. And not only did it need to be new exercises, but the intensity level needed to increase because that meant that it was going to be a harder workout, and so there was more entertainment around that. Or okay, well, we need to change the music or turn up the music or something. And don't get me wrong, like there are days where I'm about to approach my work, I'm like, okay, I need a little pick me up right now. Let's get that music going. But if it's like every single time you go in, you're like, I need to completely change everything that I'm doing because, I'm just, what I was doing before is just so boring. Well, that's an issue. And the reason why it's an issue is because if you're using all the external stuff that you're doing to kind of keep you going with your workouts, meaning if you're using the music, if you're using, the new exercises and the novelty of it all, that's the thing that keeps you going. A lot of times what ends up happening is that's where your focus ends up going during your workouts. And once you start focusing on the external things during your workouts, you lose focus of what's happening within your body. And that's really when you set yourself up for injury and not feeling well during or after your workouts. And this is not just every once in a while this happens. We actually see this happen quite commonly.
Absolutely. I think there's definitely a line, of how much is each individual able to handle the entertainment factor, and when does it start taking away from what's really happening. And I think in the end, it really comes down to staying focused on what we're doing here when we exercise anyways. Is it an hour just so that you can listen to music and, do some jumping jacks? Or is it an hour so you can improve your health and, some nice music really helps. But as long as that's not taking away from the factor, or maybe the entertainment factor is a new competition, meaning you joined a new class that's very competitive. Maybe there's a leaderboard, or everyone's rated, or everyone's heart rate is up on a board. That's fine. But as long as you remember that, hey, my goal is not to beat Sam in the class. My goal is to respect my body, use this time to improve my health and function. And so we can have entertainment factors as long as it's not derailing us from the end goal. And I think so often we forget that because the entertainment has that high, it's like getting like a buzz or a hit, like, oh, yay, like this is good. And we often forget, especially if you're not regularly listening to this podcast, like, hey, there is a bigger goal that we really have to stay laser focused on.
Absolutely. And kind of last way we see people, try to overcome this boredom with their workouts is they'll find the thing that they like to do, but then they'll completely overdo it. They will, just be like, okay, well, I don't like cardio, so I'm going to lift weights instead. And, I've been so bored with what I've been doing with my cardio that I'm just going to completely overdo it with my weights. And, as you know, with overdoing anything with your workouts, whether it's the volume or the motion or the speed or anything like that, that really leaves your body set up to not feel well during and after your workouts, really sets you up to ultimately injure yourself. And, kind of like we've said before, it's in a lot of ways like playing Russian roulette with your workouts, where, you don't know when the workout's going to come that you end up injuring yourself, and whether it's a minor injury or a severe injury, but eventually that time does come if you continue to just push and push and push, and your only way of overcoming boredom is to do things to excess.
I have a couple examples of this and I want to share them with you. Number one, I had a client come in and she's like, oh my gosh, when I'm not here, I don't like to weight train. I think it's so boring. So I just do cardio when I'm at home. I love running. Anyways, life happened. We had to take a break from training and she came back with fasciitis and shin splints because, of course, when she's not with me, she doesn't like to weight train. She thinks it's really boring. So she does what she's comfortable with and what she likes, and that is running. And so it was a whole bunch of running. And so in a way, I thought to myself, oh, yay, now you're going to weight train more, which will keep things balanced. But in reality, we want to see balance in both. We want to see that she's running appropriately so that she's not flaring up her internal issues, and she's weight training to help build and rebuild her body. Another example is I had a client go on vacation and she thought the weight room was super boring there, and she was actually at the beach, so she would want to power walk every morning on the beach and enjoy that beautiful nature. It was amazing. That was her increase in entertainment factor. About 5 days in of going twice a day walk, she has bunions and they were completely flared up, and she was telling me, oh my gosh, I feel like my feet are going to break in half. So because she wanted that entertainment factor and she wanted to avoid the boring factor, which I don't blame her. The beach is way more beautiful than the weight room. But it flared up an issue because she's now doing it to excess rather than finding the balance. The last example I had of this was one of my clients. She recently started biking a whole bunch because she wanted to lose weight and she felt like other ways of exercising were more boring, and biking was something she was comfortable with, super easy. And now she has a flare up in her calf because of so much biking. She was biking every single day on her recumbent bike at home. Anyways, I didn't even realize that I had 3 blaringly obvious examples of this problem. But anyways, if you find yourself relating to this, let's talk about some really easy solutions that you can apply to your workouts that will actually help you to continue to build your health and be less bored.
Right, because we need some solutions, right? Because the answer is not, well, you're just going to have to be bored indefinitely with your workouts and just do this thing that you hate every single day in order to continue to be healthy or whatever. Like that's a really terrible solution. So what can you do, right? Well, one of the biggest things that we recommend overall is kind of changing what you're focusing on with your workouts, okay? And this can be you can change a whole bunch of stuff while you're working out. You can change where you're working out or what you're doing or what equipment you're using, everything like that. But if you make sure that you are keeping your focus within your body and focus on squeezing your muscles and everything like that, that's going to significantly reduce the risk that you end up not feeling well from your workout. So you end up feeling achy, feeling beat up, feeling sore after your workouts with everything else that's being changed as far as doing different exercises or using different equipment or things like that.
Absolutely. So we have to think, okay, I have to stay focused internally on my body. And if you guys are a regular listener, you've heard us talk about this all before. Things like moving slowly, making sure you're respectful of your range of motion, making sure you're not moving with momentum, thinking internally, focusing on the muscle contraction. If you need more details on those principles, definitely check out some of our previous podcasts and future podcasts because we always bring them up. But here's the thing, as much as we feel like those are kind of strict and very specific guidelines, there is a lot of flexibility that you can apply while keeping that principle. It's almost like that is our framework, and then we can build a whole bunch of different stuff within that framework of different flavors and colors and timestamps and exercises. So let's talk about a few of the different things that you can easily vary while still being completely respectful of your body, your range of motion, all the things I had just listed off.
So one thing is the speed with which you're moving. I know we normally say, hey, move slowly while you're exercising. And that still holds true. Like we want you moving slowly, especially while you're doing your resistance training. However, the currency to be able to move faster while you're exercising is to maintain control and maintain that internal focus, maintain your focus on squeezing your muscles. And so if you're able to move a little bit faster and keep your focus on squeezing your muscles while you're doing it and still being able to pay attention on exactly what's happening within your body and everything like that, then this speed one can be something that actually makes the workout feel completely different for your body, whether that's moving slower or moving faster than you were.
Absolutely. And this actually blends into our next point, which is changing up the tools that you're using. There are actually some tools that you can more easily start moving more quickly without gaining momentum. So normally we're like, move really slow because then the machine doesn't gain momentum, which if you think about a normal weight machine or dumbbells, you move it fast and there's always like a flinging portion of it or like a portion of the exercise where your muscles aren't working at all, which we're there to work our muscles. So why would we exercise in a way to not work your muscles? Anyways, things like bands offer a unique opportunity. So changing your tool where you can move a little quicker with bands without losing momentum and losing control. And we also used to have air compression machines. So if you have the unique tool of finding machines that the resistance is air pressure, you can move pretty quickly without losing control and without gaining momentum, meaning having that time where you're really not lifting any weights at all, and still be able to really highlight the muscle contraction and the muscle work. So think about the tools you can change. Also in our home workouts program, and often we use it in a lot of our online and in-person sessions is isometrics. So using tools around your house, like we often use towels or belts or different bands that are not stretchy to add in an isometric. So thinking about your tools, machines, free weights, kettlebells, resistance bands, non-stretchy objects, chairs, non-chairs. So varying the tools, you can still apply all of the principles of keeping the exercise internal while still changing the tools.
Yeah, for sure. Now, another one is changing the order that you're doing your exercises. So let's say you normally do an upper body exercise and then a lower body exercise and then a core exercise, and that's just been the routine that you're on. Put 3 core exercises in a row and then do 3 lower body exercises and then do 3 upper body. Like, you can mix and play with the order. And that doesn't seem like it would be that big of a deal. But guess what? Every single time that we do that with clients, they're like, wow, this feels completely different. And it's not even like, we've changed the music or, now we become rah-rah trainers or anything like that. Just simply by changing the order that you're doing stuff, it's like, wow, yeah, this is a totally different exercise experience.
Yeah, really, the spectrum on the order that you can choose is endless. So play with it. You can do circuits. You can do all your legs, all your arms, all your core. You could do core, cardio, core, cardio, core, cardio, upper body, cardio, upper body. All of those things. You can apply the principles of improving the health and function of your body while working on not being bored with all these variations. The last one you can play with is your rest periods. And when we say rest periods, then that also implies like your work period. So your work to rest period. So how long are you working? How long are you resting? What areas are you resting? What areas are you not resting? So try different intervals like that to again, vary these workouts.
Yeah, one thing that I really like with that is when you're changing your rest periods. See, a lot of times what people do is they'll do like their resistance training. And then maybe later they'll do their cardio. And it's like 2 separate things, right? So there's this, you do your resistance training and you're resting between each exercise. And then you're either stopping or you're taking some kind of rest and then you're going and doing your cardio. Well, when you change your rest, what you can actually do is you can take your cardio and you can intermix it with your resistance training. And now all of a sudden, like, your resistance training in a way becomes a rest for your cardio. And guess what? Like, when you're pretty tired, when you're huffing and puffing from your cardio, it's a lot more difficult to feel really bored from your resistance training, because a large part of where your mind is like, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to recover right now. And then now all of a sudden you got your resistance training in and you're back to doing your cardio. And so that can be a way that you are able to increase the entertainment factor, that you're able to make your workouts feel more fun and feel like you're able to keep coming back to them, but still keep the focus on building the health and function of your body. And that's really the key with your workouts, is keeping the focus on building the health and function of your body. And then all the other variables, you're completely free to play around with and switch them up to make sure that, yeah, I'm still interested in doing my workouts. All right, so what's the issue with not doing what we've discussed today, with just letting yourself get bored with your workouts and trying all the traditional ways of making your workouts more enjoyable for yourself? Well, the big one that we see time and again is people end up being injured from their workouts when you're just trying to make your workouts fun, when you're just trying to make your workouts enjoyable. Because one of the easiest ways to do that is to increase that entertainment factor, to increase all the external stuff that seems really fun, that seems really exciting, that, increasing the music or the complexity of the moves, or, trying out the new classes, all stuff that your body's not accustomed to, or it shifts your focus away from what's going on within your body and into what's going on around your body. And once you lose sight of what's happening within your body, you miss all those signs and signals of your body telling you, hey, we've done enough. Hey, we shouldn't be doing anymore. Hey, we need to change how we're doing this. So that's really the big one that we see, when people are so focused on not being bored with their workouts that they end up sacrificing the health and function of their body in order to try to not be bored with their workouts.
Absolutely. And as very almost short term as injury might seem, I've had a handful of clients that have had to reinvent what they thought their future might look like due to injury, whether that's immediate or kind of long term. For example, I had a client that really wanted to golf a ton in his retirement. And during his, 40s and 50s, he exercised, but he always wanted to do the newest, funnest, coolest thing. And in the meantime, he hurt his back and he wasn't quite sure how to get back on track until he learned about how we think about exercise and applying those principles. And unfortunately, until he made that change, he felt like his whole life he was looking forward to retiring and golfing a whole bunch, and then he could not see that in his future anymore because his back wouldn't be able to handle it. I had another client who was young and fit, and she was so into a certain type of class that was really competitive externally, and the entertainment factor had to take over because she felt like every other kind of workout was really boring, like running by herself or doing weights by herself. And unfortunately, it really injured a certain area of her body, and she felt like, oh my gosh, will I be able to be active with my kids again, or easily, or without a lot of pain? So really take this injury piece to heart, because our physical body, as much as we can build it and repair it, it can also easily be injured. So be really careful of when you're getting bored, if you're going to do something that might be too intense for it or too biased for it.
Another thing that comes up a lot is people just lose interest in exercising. They're like, well, this is not fun for me. I don't enjoy it. I have limited time to begin with. So why would I add something into my day that, I'm not looking forward to? And, it's one thing to lose interest in exercise for like a day and say, okay, well, I'm just not really into the idea of exercising today. But what usually ends up happening is people lose interest in exercise for months and years. And that's really where we start to see some big issues creep up and they end up doing an extended break from working out, or they stop exercising altogether. And the scary thing about it is within 48 hours of not exercising, people start to develop insulin resistance. And sometimes this happens even faster with people. Like in young, healthy, fit individuals, it can happen within that time frame. But with people that are, not as young or already not as healthy, it can happen more quickly. Insulin resistance is the thing that ultimately leads to various complications such as heart disease, diabetes, various forms of dementia, various forms of cancer. And so it develops so quickly when you stop being physically active. And so it's really of the utmost importance that even if you're not interested in exercising, that you find a way to continue to exercise, you find a way to continue to be physically active, because it's not like, okay, yeah, 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road, these might be issues for you. It's like these things can develop really quickly. Not only are you at risk of injuring yourself, but you're at risk of developing severe health complications as well.
All right, so when you are exercising and you start applying the principles that we talked about today within the guidelines of exercising to improve the health and function of your body, what does that look like? Well, the end goal is you're exercising in a manner that you can repeat over and over and over again, and you can return to over and over and over again. That means it's exercise that is not depleting your body. It's exercise that is building your body. It's exercise that's giving you more energy. It's exercise that's building the health and function of your joints and your muscles, and it's helping you metabolically. It's pushing your internal function in the right direction of being healthy and living a long, healthy life. So really, when you're applying the principles of exercise that focuses internally on your body, this is what exercise is going to look like. Again, it's going to be something that is repeatable again and again, day after day, year after year.
And what this means for you is every day you get stronger. Every day you get to feel healthier. Every day you get to feel more like that version of yourself that you really want to feel like, where you feel energized, you feel capable. You are feeling like no matter what the day throws your way, you're able to handle it. You're able to do all the things you want to do and continue to do those things. You don't feel like you are being subject to the requests of Father Time saying, oh no, you need to slow down now because your birthday was however many days ago. It's like, yeah, no. You can keep pushing. You can keep doing all the stuff that you want to do day after day and feel the way you want to feel while you're doing those things. And that's really what success with this looks like. And that's why we say, hey, it's so important that we're exercising to build our health, not just today, not just tomorrow, but build our health for the long term through exercising in a way that we can keep coming back to day after day, decade after decade. One of the easiest ways to make sure you're able to do this is using something like our MAS home workouts bundle. Okay, we put together over 150 workouts that can be done in 25 minutes or less, all from the comfort of your own home. We do them in our living room, and you can watch us do them in our living room while you do them in your living room. So they're all video guided. We do them with you in real time. It doesn't require hardly any equipment. I mean, it's all stuff that you can find around your house. So all you have to do to get your copy of the MAS home workouts bundle is go to homeworkout.matschaumburg.com. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that finds themselves often bored with their workouts, and they use it as a reason to either increase all the entertainment factors of workouts or ultimately decide to not work out? Share this episode with them so they can understand what things they can do differently with their workouts to keep themselves interested in exercising, as well as what the issues are of either just trying to increase the entertainment factors of the workouts or stopping exercising altogether. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find this episode when they're looking for information on exercise and when they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. So how'd you like that episode? Did you find the information useful? If you enjoyed what we discussed today, then you are going to love the Exercise for Life method, which is a book that we just put out, and you can get a free copy of by going to exerciseforlifemethod.com. All we ask is that you pay for shipping and handling, so head there now and get your free copy, as well as some exclusive bonuses that you will get instant access to when you get the book. You can learn more and get your copy at exerciseforlifemethod.com. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.